Everyone, welcome and thank you for tuning in to our panel talk today, Her Voice, Social Impact by Indonesian Women. We would like to say thank you to Ashoka Arab World and Women's Initiative for Social Entrepreneurship, WISE, for having us host today's panel talk. My name is Medina and I will be today's panel talk moderator. Quick introduction about me. I was born and raised in Jakarta, Indonesia. I've lived here for about 17 years before embarking to pursue my undergraduate studies at King's College London, studying philosophy, politics, and economics. And now joining Toraja Mello as Chief of Staff, I am exploring the social enterprise landscape while pursuing my MSc degree at the National University of Singapore. And today with us, we have Aparna Bhatnagar Saxena, the CEO of Toraja Mello. So if you can quickly say hi to our audience before I introduce you further.
Hi, everyone.
Aparna is an apologetic feminist, a vegan, an environmentalist, and a student for life, an Indian now based in Jakarta and have now lived and worked in 4 countries in Asia. She is now a social entrepreneur and has worked in startups, SMEs, large corporations, and impact businesses. Under her leadership, Toraja Mello aims to cement its identity as a slow, ethical lifestyle business that works on environmental, social, and cultural sustainability of indigenous communities in Indonesia. We also have Sabrina Gustopo, the founder and CEO of Kakakoa. If you can say hi to our audience as well.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Sabrina is the founder and CEO of Kakakoa, a farmer-to-bar chocolate company making a life-changing chocolate. She founded Kakakoa in 2013 with a mission to empower smallholder cacao farmers in Indonesia while ensuring environmental sustainability and value creation through downstream processing in the country. Prior to starting Kakakoa, Sabrina worked for 6 years in McKinsey & Company, where she specialized in projects relating to agricultural development, sustainable economic development, and climate change in East Africa and Asia. And we have Kartika Dubasari here, co-founder of Studio Code. Please say your greetings to our audience.
Hello, everybody. Hope you will enjoy the talk today.
Known for her energetic and people person personality, Kartika co-founded Studio Code to fulfill her long-time dream of creating an impactful business for Indonesian children through technology education. She is also the founder of a local branding and digital marketing firm and a co-working space. Prior to her entrepreneurial journey, she worked in Unilever for its corporate communications and safety and engineering division. And she holds a master's degree in international relations from Monash University, Australia. She's contributing actively as a mentor in her alma mater program and advocating women empowerment movement through Karya Kirani. While not putting her professional cap on, she is a millennial mama of 2 little girls, enjoys great food and meaningful conversations. Right, let's get to the discussion. I will start off by asking Sabrina on what brought her to social entrepreneurship.
So thank you for the introduction. People like to ask me what made me make the change from being a management consultant to social entrepreneurship. And I think a lot of people who ask that question come from a very similar background where they might have corporate jobs, but are thinking about doing something else, but have not really made up their mind whether to make that leap of faith or not. And for me, for my story, I think partly there was a push factor in the sense that after 6 years, I think one can only do so many PowerPoint slides before becoming quite bored with it. And then there was also a pull factor in the sense that I love the hands-on aspect of building a business, of getting my hands dirty, working with farmers, being on the ground. And at the same time, I saw that there was this huge opportunity in the cocoa sector to actually do things differently. And I was a point in my life where I think I felt that if I didn't do this now, where I didn't have so many responsibilities, so many, so many people to take care of, I would never do it. And I think in life, you just got to take that plunge sometimes, right? Where you say, okay, I don't know if it's right. I don't know if I'm going to fall completely on my face doing this, but something inside of me just feels compelled to try. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine, but you just got to give it a shot. So that's how I got started with Kakakoa.
Very, very interesting. Maybe over to Aparna, and how did you make this transition to social entrepreneurship?
Okay. I wouldn't say similar to Sabrina, but yeah, I have always been, I think, involved in social projects, maybe because of my upbringing. So, volunteering here and there, and women, environment, and children have been my hooks. So, whatever I would be doing in my career, I would always take out time for, volunteering in these spaces. And then I think resonating with Sabrina, you do reach a stage in your life where you realize that what are you doing this for and what is it leading to? And I think I had reached a stage where I had had enough of taking orders from people, right? You might have a great cushy salary, get a lot of money, but you're limited by your sphere of influence because of the role you're in, right? And therefore, I've been like a seeker of challenges. And I would say Taraja Mello, we just found each other. We've had, we dated for a while. Like I was advising Taraja Mello for a while, and then finally, I was offered by the founder to take over. And I basically asked the same question to myself: if not now, then when? And if not me, then who? And whatever might happen, I will just give it all I've got. So I think you just have to give it a try, is what I would say. And it just leads you to wherever. There are always lessons you can take back, and you get an opportunity to, I think, be involved in the impact that you create. You're really on the ground and you can see the realities rather than, viewing it from the top, which often happens in larger businesses. So that's what brought me to social entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Okay, maybe over to Kartika to also tell us a bit more about the perspective of balancing life with kids and with family, and also jumping into social entrepreneurship. The screen is yours.
Okay, so basically, me jumping into Studio Code was by accident. One of my college mates, Shirley, she was actually inviting me, let's do something about education in Indonesia. A lot of people in Indonesia currently are asking what can we do, and then complaining a lot but not doing anything about it. So while I know that probably my impact is not big yet, I have to start somewhere. And then I decided to go around the kids and also technology education because I have 2 kids of my own. So I feel like I want to grow something around them so that I can integrate them into my business as well. Because being a mom and also a mom to my business is very difficult. Sometimes one demand more time than the other. Then how can I integrate one to the other? Because it's very hard to balance. Someday you need to give a lot more time to the kids. Another day the business needs more time. So the way that I do it is I craft it both around each other. And I feel that I really am blessed because then my kids, I can invite them to join the business as well. I ask them about their suggestion and advice on the technology education that we're going to deliver to the children as well. So I feel like this is the right thing for me. And maybe why now? Technology education is probably one of the most important thing when the pandemic hits the market. Parents, children, schools are really, find difficulties in coping with going from offline to online. And I feel like when everything comes into place, I have to take this leap of faith and then just go around with it. So that's how I jump into this social entrepreneurship.
Maybe just a follow-up question from your story. Why did you choose education, as your field here?
Okay, so we all know that the first 5 years of children's life is the most important time. It's the golden age, as we say. And I feel like by educating them since the get-go, we're trying to plant a lot of good ideas in their heads so that when they grow up, it's harder to change someone's perspective when they're older. So we're trying to bring it since they're a child. And basically, technology education is something that will help them, excel in the future. Everything is technology based right now. So if we start younger, I hope that the next generation will be able to complete globally as well. And that's why I decided to do it on education.
Maybe also reverting back to the points that all you three made earlier about leaping to the entrepreneurship space. How do we make that leap to entrepreneurship, and especially in social entrepreneurship? How do we make this perhaps more appealing to the younger generation, so more younger generation would want to be involved in social entrepreneurship? Maybe let's start with Sabrina.
Sure. So I actually think a lot of the younger generation are very conscious So they want to work on something with a purpose. So I think when I, I'm showing my age now, but then when I was graduating from college, I think the priority was, let's get a job that makes the most amount of money. And I see a different breed of graduates coming out now where they don't want to do the investment banking jobs that make them the most amount of money, but they want to do something that makes them feel fulfilled and gives them a sense of purpose. So I think that people are already attracted to the industry. The younger generation, the graduates of today, they are already seeking to work in social entrepreneurship. Perhaps what's lacking is models of success and amplifying, no matter what their parents are going to be concerned, right? Are you actually going to be able to make a living doing this? Or are you going to be, and a lot of, I think, parents find still working for an NGO type of company for minimum pay. And I think showcasing more examples of success whereby you can say like, yes, this is a viable career option. You don't have to live with your parents for your entire life if this is what you choose to do. You can be successful financially and be fulfilled or feel very fulfilled as well in your pursuit of whatever you choose to do. I think that is one way that we can attract or at least give the confidence to have more people take that leap of faith and join the social entrepreneurship space.
Maybe Kartika, if you want to add something to it, what do you think about the social entrepreneurship landscape in terms of the appeal to the younger generation, and how does this present as a career opportunity?
Okay, so basically, if I have to say, right, 80% of my team is actually Gen Z, so very, very young. And then the way that we attract them is actually by letting them know the purpose, like Sabrina said just now, and actually also by telling them that there are a lot of things that you can learn. We are not a big corporation, but when you join us, you can learn a lot of things from A to Z. And these kind of projects challenge them, because when we say to them, okay, come to me with a project, and then let's see if it's feasible to do. And if it is, then you had it and then you do it. Then your success is your success. Because in a big corporation, things for innovation are very limited, the space for it. But in startups like us, you can do a lot of things. I think it's the same thing like you and Tara Jamila, right? I mean, like you can do a lot of things without a lot of restrictions. Just do it. If it fails, that's okay. Then we try another thing. The speed of innovation is what attracted them, because they know that they can do something really, really big if they really want to do it. So there is no restriction at all. And I think that is something that a lot of younger generations these days are attracted to startups, industry, because they know that they can do whatever is feasible and do it big if they would like to. So I think that's one way to attract them.
Aparna, any additional thoughts?
I agree with both what Sabrina and Kartika have shared. I think what we need to do is also play it out as a viable career option, right? And the current generation, the younger millennials and Gen Z are definitely more conscious. So I think we have to really cash in on that. And there has to be more of a concerted movement, if I may say, where you have to make these, first of all, these jobs known. And secondly, you have to ensure that, whatever we're projecting as social enterprises that is the fact that, they are bound by, business practices, right? So, because if you look at startups too, they're actually running on a lot of VC money, yes? So essentially it's how you sell the dream. So essentially, I think what we really need in the field of social entrepreneurship is more and more of role modeling, and also sharing in terms of the business models and how you are part of a change and you create impact. As long as, we are able to do that, then we'll have people who are attracted, towards it, and not necessarily just the ones who are driven by passion. Because if we have to make the social entrepreneurship sector a viable, career option, I think we need to cash in on more than just the passion of the young people, but actually show them that how that translates into impact creation and, changing lives and livelihoods. And that's the way businesses are meant to be run. So I think it's tying the profit with the purpose angle, which social enterprises are all about. We just need to showcase that more and leverage on this. Especially, I think now the time is really ripe. So we should really, do that more often. And I'm hoping with this Vice Summit and with this, session, we'll have more young people attracted towards this as a career option. That you don't have to live hand to mouth. You can make a career out of this and change lives.
Thank you. Next is an open question to also any of you three. If you want to answer, just unmute yourself. So are there any challenges that is specific to the Indonesian context which create that barrier to women thriving in this field or in the social entrepreneurship field? And how do we, get through them?
Okay, let me start first, I guess. So for me, it's attracting the right talent, even in rainy days, and then make sure that they really believe in our dream and our passion. Because you cannot lie. At the end of the day, you need to live and to survive, right? And sometimes a lot of hurdle that we have is on the funding. We cannot offer something that is really attractive in the pay. Not yet, because we're still struggling in there. And then Studio Kodo itself is still bootstrapping at the moment. But to be able to make sure that they're attracted, like the previous question, is by making sure that we can tie our purpose so that they can be in with us. So it is one of the biggest hurdle that we have right now. A lot of the team members that I have right now, are still questioning. Is it good in the long run to be in a social enterprise, and how can I make a career out of it, like the previous question as well. So actually it is very difficult for us to make sure that these people stay with us for the long run. But the way that I try to explain to them is that they're creating impact in their lives, not only to themselves, not only to the company, but also to the greater good. And with that kind of explanation and then making sure that they are in the right project, then it is one of the way that we can mitigate this one. So I think that is one of the biggest hurdles that we have in Studio Kodo right now. On to Aparna, I think, because Aparna wanted to say something before.
No, I was in fact going to say that I think Sabrina will possibly share a bit from Indonesian women's perspective. So Sabrina, maybe I ask you to add in, and then I'll wrap it up with my observation, because this is very much talking about the Indonesian landscape, which you know very well.
Yeah, so when I think about that question, there's really three parts, right? So first is like women, then second is social entrepreneurship, and third is Indonesia. And each of those things versus, say, if you were male doing purely for profit, or if you're starting a business, say in Singapore, I mean, each of those comes with like its whole host of challenges alone. Like on the women's side, we know, Kartika mentioned funding. We know what the statistics say about, when it comes to fundraising, how much more challenging it is for women versus male founders. So I think we have to recognize that there are inherent biases, and what are the things that we can do or work towards to take down or reduce all these inherent biases, so that we can make fundraising easier for women founders and women leaders. Then the second part, social entrepreneurship. I think the narrative of saying that doing good, doing good is good for business. That sounds very nice, right? But I think for those of us who've been doing this for a while, we know that there are actually trade-offs. We pay our farmers more, for example, right, for the cocoa beans. So that hurts our bottom line, as opposed to a purely for-profit companies that can pay, the minimal price possible for cocoa beans. We pay for training, we pay for equipment. All of those comes, again, at a cost to our bottom line. So I think, yes, sustainability in the long run, that will help us, all of that. It's a great story, and I think that's true. But I think we have to recognize as well that there are inherent tensions when it comes to trying to do good and create profit at the same time. And again, when I think about the structure that are in places, we don't get any special incentives as social entrepreneurship, right? Even though we are, in a way, helping to solve some social problems, which you may argue is the mandate of government or of NGOs. So I think, I hope over time we start to see a little bit more maybe tax breaks or certain incentives in order to be able to foster more social businesses. And the last one, Indonesia. Oh, where do we start with that? I think, I mean, I don't have to explain too much into it, but then everything from regulatory issues to how do we deal with, corruption, all of that. It's getting better, but I think it will take some time before we kind of get to a level where I think we want to get to. So I think the challenge is because it's three inherent different challenges, and they're all coming in together at the same time. And I think that's what makes it so difficult to be a woman social entrepreneur in Indonesia.
Thank you for sharing. I kind of like have the same thought with the question. It seems there seems to be that 3-layer on that question. Aparna, please do share your observation, working in the social entrepreneurship field in Indonesia.
Oh, I will just add one more variable to that is I'm a foreign woman. Yeah, so it makes it a foreign brown woman. It makes it even much more complex to do that. And I agree with Sabrina. I think it's a combination of these variables, but at the same time, change is needed at various levels too. For example, one is the women themselves have to sort of, push themselves to go and transcend these barriers. It's not easy because often, we are told, okay, if it gets too difficult, you can give up, right? So I think the women themselves, but secondly is whether the platform is ready to support and also really make it an equal platform, right? A fair platform, because whatever we might say, how many ever impact businesses might come in and also impact investors, there is still a huge gap, right? Still very few women run businesses, get funded, and it's definitely not about the business model, right? There are many other factors at play. So I think also in terms of, changing and people who are part of this landscape also pushing the change, right? Both from the investor side and of course, the founder side. And then finally, regulatory, yes. So I think Indonesia still doesn't recognize social enterprises as a separate entity. So whenever we operate, we have to have either two entities, right? A foundation arm and a private limited arm to do what we aim to do properly. So we are hoping that over a period of time, this gets recognized. There are also certain benefits that are extended because we tend to operate in difficult situations, right? We're not operating in very nice urban setups where the infrastructure is perfect, etc. So we operate in difficult setups, and therefore support from regulatory authorities will help, transcend these barriers a bit more easily and help us have a more sustainable, impact over a period of time. So I guess it's these two things that I'd like to add, that change has to be, brought in. Otherwise, often what happens is women limit themselves to just running businesses from their homes because they're told that, yeah, just, take up a small business at home, which is not wrong, but I think they can do so much more, right? There's so much more that can be brought in. And therefore, I think we need to even create a change in that perception and that platform that you can pursue, these kind of businesses and challenges, and there is infrastructural support to take you ahead. So I think we need change in all these angles.
I think from these stories, the next question would be, what can the Global South learn from this experience? Maybe over to Aparna again, or Sabrina, or Kartika again. Sorry.
Okay, so let me just, kick it off, and then Kartika and Sabrina, you can pick it off. So I think Global South consists of countries like Indonesia, right? The emerging markets, the developing economies. And I believe the challenges are similar, right? However different we might be in our language and cultural practices, but the challenges women face are actually quite similar, of different magnitude. So I think the lessons that Indonesia can offer, if you will try to draw a parallel, you will see similar challenges that women face in India, in South Asia, in Southeast Asia also, and also possibly parts of Africa. So I would say Middle East and Africa, and even the Americas. Yeah. So it's essentially where, your gender should not decide your eligibility for being able to run a business or take up a profession, right? And the fact that you are A, judged on your competence, B, you are not, I think, penalized for your gender, because what happens is you already, first of all, have those barriers, but secondly, are you penalized because of your gender, and do you have more responsibilities to fulfill to achieve that certain, level of success versus males, right? And that really needs to be looked into, because you will see that the lessons across global South are similar, and we need, like a individual, societal, and also I would say regulatory framework changes in order to support, more women taking up any kind of entrepreneurship is my take on this. Sabrina?
Yeah, I don't know that, maybe I'm just not aware of any specific case, but I don't know if there's like a shining light, beacon of a story that we can say like, wow, this was so great in Indonesia. This is the lesson for the rest of the global South. I guess I have yet to see that. And I think, kind of to echo what you said, Aparna, I think it's a lot more about cross-sharing, right? Where we say, I think we're still all trying to figure it out. If I say, hey, what's an example of like a social enterprise that's highly successful, women-led, and is competing at the same level as a for-profit company, I think we struggle to find an answer, right? Of like, what is that? So as we're still trying to work towards that, as we're still trying to showcase that, yes, women can do it. Yes, social enterprises can compete with for-profit business. Yes, companies from developing countries can compete with companies from developed countries. I think we just need to share the learnings and the lessons and help each other out, right? Indonesia can say, hey, this kind of worked well in this small example, and Brazil might share something else. And I think that platform for cross-sharing needs to happen more. And that's how we take it forward. So I didn't quite answer your question, Medina, but then I think more rather because I haven't seen an example, and I hope that over time, if we do more collaborations, then we will eventually have, that shining light that we can point towards and go like, yeah, that worked, and it's because of these things.
Okay, just to add a little bit more, actually in Indonesia, for the last couple of years, a lot of support groups for women entrepreneurs have popped up. And I think that this kind of communities is what help new entrepreneurs, especially women, to come about and then make more creative solutions to the social impact needed in Indonesia. And I feel myself, I benefit from that. I do actually have a support group for the women entrepreneurship. And I feel like as sisters in this group, we help each other, we learn from each other, and then we're not shy to some sort of share, not our success only, but our failures, so that the others can some sort of resonate from our experience. Because sometimes, right, when we listen about success stories from other women, me, myself, I used to feel intimidated, because like, oh my goodness, she's up there. How can I get up there? And if I do not get into there, how will I feel? And I actually feel a lot of, depression in the first place, because I do not know how to juggle a lot of things, how to prioritize. But as the years passed on, and then I found a lot of new support groups, I started to realize, the metrics of success is different from one another. Just because I'm not as successful as the other women, I don't have to feel small. And those kind of spirit is what I get from the support group. So if I can say that the others can learn from the Indonesian society of women entrepreneurs is that, get a lot of it, get benefit from the support groups, and make sure that you pay it forward. Because this is something that people don't do usually. When they get something from the group, right, and then they get successful, they forgot about the group, and then they go somewhere else and not paying it forward. Whereas it is very important for us to do so that more and more women will be able to come up and then do their things. I think that's my take on it.
Thank you. Very great points. The next few questions will be a lot more tailored to the industry everyone is in. So I guess for the first question, it'll be more to Aparna and Sabrina. What might be some of the most challenging barriers that you face in supporting marginalized women or communities within your field? And how do you, challenge them? And this will also link to challenges like resource allocation. How would you look at resources for clients in a community which you have no relationships before? So over to Aparna and Sabrina first.
Yeah, so I think with women farmers, they have a lot of extra other responsibilities, right? So they're not just in the field having to take care of the plantations, but they're also expected to be a mother and take care of their kids, and expected to be a wife and, you know, take care of their husbands. Then apart from that, you know, they might have other, apart from farming, some other small business. So they juggle many different hats. And I think in terms of the resourcing, so one, I think it's even just acknowledging, right? So lots of times when we have farmer signups and we say, hey, would you like to come for training and all of that? Sometimes the women say, oh, it's okay, my husband can sign up on behalf of the family. Anyway, I attend the training, it's on both our behalves. But it's, you know, the men's name that's down on the paper. Or when it comes to selling the cocoa beans, right? They say, oh, it's okay, it's our family's farm, so it's fine that my husband is the one that is bringing the beans to the collection center and receiving the money. I think representation in that sense is very important for them to be comfortable in saying like, no, it's going to be my name that's down on paper saying that I'm registering for this training event, or saying that no, it's me that's going to be taking the beans and I'm going to actually be receiving the cash, and I know how much money, you know, my household is going to be receiving. Sometimes it can be a little bit taboo to be pushing that from the outside, right? And we can't be completely prescriptive and come in with our city dweller hat and go like, no, you know, a gender equality, so you have to do this. I think we have to be respectful of the local situation as well. And then over time, win their trust and try to understand like, how do we do this in a way that's acceptable by the community? Because we can't brute force it. You know, if we brute force it, we're going to have the opposite effect of whatever we intended. So I think first step is, you know, understanding from their perspective, why do they do certain things in a particular way, and then how can we over time try to influence that a little bit, right? How can we over time try to convince them that no, it's important that your name's on the paper as well. And is there other things that we can kind of do to kind of slip that in a little bit? Maybe have, say, a women's saving program, right? Or a women's financial literacy program that's just for women, because we can just say like, oh yeah, because if it's like a mom and pop shop that's in the village, usually it's the women that's leading it, so they need a little bit more financial literacy, blah, 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 all of that, but in a way that's acceptable by the local communities. So that's, I think, what we try to do. We understand that women have a completely different set of challenges in the communities that we work in. We try to understand the local situation as well. And we try to slowly influence things over time, but it has to be on the basis of trust.
Over to Aparna.
Yes, so I would say understanding the local context is just so very important, right? We generally, most of us live in urban settings, you know, we have our own version of realities, and whatever we might say, I mean, there's still a big gap in terms of, you know, gendered roles. So a woman is never just a farmer, a woman is never just a weaver, you know, she has her responsibility as a mother, daughter, sister, you know, her role is there. And even when the family is, you know, full set, she still has more unpaid work that she has to do in her, you know, daily life. And on top of it, we work with indigenous communities, which means they also have their, you know, indigenous local practices, their own festivals, and, you know, everything, and which they are obligated to be part of, right? Indonesia, as a very ethnically rich countries, is extremely diverse, and therefore, you know, that adds another dynamic to it. And therefore, being aware of their local lives and their responsibilities is so important, that if you try to go in with your, you know, mindset, and often, you know, it does sometimes bother me, but I have to understand is the fact that this is the way it is, right? And I have this phrase like, it is what it is, and you have to find your way around it. You have to navigate it. And that happens when you create strong local relationships you always have to find local leaders, because when you go in as an outsider and you try to, lay down your expectations and not understand their local context, it's not going to work. Sooner or later, there's going to be like a breakdown, or the relationship or the work will not progress the way it should be. So I think going down, understanding their local context, their challenges, and then navigating your way around it, which definitely slows down the whole process, right? So the start to end versus a normal setting, and start to end versus these rural, indigenous, settings is very different. And we need to be aware of it. We need to incorporate it in our planning at the outset. And then, of course, we have to learn as we go. There will be mistakes, there will be challenges. And I think it's a continuous improvement cycle. Yeah. And as our founder says, you are in a constant negotiation with them. So you're constantly, negotiating, understanding their context and aligning. And what we try to then do is, and I'm sure, Sabrina has done that in her releases, in this journey, you also start raising the bar. Okay, what you always have to remember is that while you understand their situations, etc., you also, when you engage with them, create platforms and remove barriers so that it's easy for them to do what you expect of them, but also to do what they are expected to do in their local context, and make things easier so that you have a more cohesive relationship, and it operates more like a partnership and not a typical vendor buyer relationship, right? So definitely a lot of homework on relationship building and planning, rather than the implementation goes in these kind of settings where we work in.
Thank you. Let's shift the focus a bit now. Maybe let's go to Kartika now, about education, right? How far are we? How are we prepared for the future of work and the future of the world? Building the knowledge of tech and all that within the young generation. What does it look like right now?
Okay, so basically when we're talking about technology education for children, we're also talking about the support system around them, like the parents and also the schools. Right now, the biggest homework for me in Studio Kuda is educating the parents and the school as well, because sometimes we are so focused on educating the children, we forgot when they get home or go to school. Educators in school and also parents at home are the ones that they will learn from. So let's say if I teach my children, right, about let's say Scratch programming, and then they go home and they practice it, and then they ask, "Mommy, can I have an example of this? How can I do this?" And the parents cannot answer the question. That love of learning from the children will decrease down, and this is very dangerous, because a lot of times mommies and daddies, we're very tired when we get home from work, right? And then when they started to talk, asking us little question that they're curious about, we said, "Oh, hold on, wait a minute, I'm just so tired. Can you ask again later, or ask somebody else about it?" And this is what kills curiosity that is very important for the future. So through technology education, I always ask my educators to make sure that every single little thing that they ask in class has to be answered. And if you do not have the answer to that, just pause it and then tell them again the next day. So right now, the challenge are in the infrastructure itself, because internet connection, as you know, in Indonesia is still not really good in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. And this is something that we wanted to work on. We don't want that to be a stopper. So instead, how about we're bringing technology education through something more conventional, even if it's paper-based. I know it's not environmental friendly right now, but it is one of the ways that we can get into Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. We have no choice at the moment. So apart from that, the resources, the educator themselves, the saying that educators who are inspired will end up inspiring kids, right? So this is something that we also struggle with. A lot of times our educators, we struggle to make sure that they are some sort of inspired to teach the children in class, because children, right, sometimes they don't want to learn about the technology education only. They just want to tell about their stories during the day. They want to tell about the experience they have in school, and our educators are listening to that. And sometimes they go to class and then they ask for 15 minutes more just to share about their story. So through this kind of engagement between the educators and the students, we're trying to make sure that the children love the process of learning. And in return, when we some sort of give the materials about technology education to them, they are more responsive to that. So a lot of challenge really. I mean, like in the educators, in the infrastructure, and also in the resources, access of resources, especially because technology education is very expensive. And that's why a lot of our competitors at the moment in Indonesia, they are not affordable. So affordability is one of the issues that we're facing as well. And we're trying to decrease that down by making sure that our resources is affordable for all the parents. They don't have to pay extra. They don't have to pay all the unnecessary things like registration fee, reschedule fee, and other fees, you know. So I am very hopeful with the technology education in Indonesia, because we're trying to do our best. I know that we're not big enough yet, but we're going there. But as you know, with social impact, you cannot expect results in 1 or 2 days. It's a long battle. It can be months, years, decades. But the most important thing is actually to make sure that it's a constant trial every single day. And you have to trust the process. And you really have to go and wake up in the morning and then say to yourself, I will make more impact today than yesterday. So that's how I'm going about the technology education and the impact in Indonesia.
Thank you. Now, how has the industry everyone is in? So perhaps for Aparna, it's more towards sustainable fashion, Sabrina more towards the cocoa industry, and Kartika more on the technology education industry. How has the industry changed in the past 5 years? And what do you predict it will happen in the next 5 to 10 years?
Okay, so I'll start off with the field of sustainable fashion. So over the past 5 years, there's a lot of narrative that's come into play, right? The whole terminology of slow fashion also has come into vogue. A lot of discussions around what fashion is doing, especially fast fashion, the damage fast fashion has caused, and especially, right, it's become now this buzz phrase that fashion is the second most polluting industry in the world, right? Because of the whole impact it creates, the negative impact. So I would say definitely there is a higher level of awareness, and the younger millennials and Gen Z are more conscious also, purely because they are more attuned, right? They're more on social media and internet, so they are aware of these facts, or they are more attuned to this. But has it led to actual changes? Yes. So what is happening is there's definitely strong narrative. There has been a push towards trying to look at better practices, better solutions, innovation. A lot of discussions around some projects also happening. A lot actually being driven on the western part of the world and actually global north. But I have also seen in the past 5 years, a lot of it is happening in the global south, in Southeast Asia, where we have had more, businesses come up, or which are offering alternatives, which are looking at reducing the negative impact of fast fashion, etc. So there's definitely a movement, right? It's the needle is moving, and what I would like to say is we need to really expedite it. Yes, so things are moving, but not necessarily at the pace it needs to. The fast fashion, the big lobby is still very big, right? And what this has led to is, and currently if you watch the news lately for the past 2 weeks, a lot of news on greenwashing, on ESG, rankings being questioned, etc. So even the call outs are also happening, because while there is a movement towards taking the right steps, are the right steps being taken? We don't know. Yes. But what does that tell us? What do I think the next 5 to 10 years are going to be like is, I think we need more of these sustainable businesses, especially in fashion, to actually come together. I would like to leverage on the power of the collective, the sharing. It's that can lead to us creating more impact rather than fighting these battles individually, because it's very tough, right? It's very tough. And the cost of doing a sustainable business right now is still much, much higher. I would say multiplied by at least 10 times, right? If you look at overall all the pieces. And therefore, we have to come together to try and create, alternative business models and processes in order to, push sustainable fashion businesses. And I hope that will happen more, right? So the change is happening, but I hope the change happens sooner than later. And secondly, I hope we also create more, I think, valid metrics that are applicable to the global south and developing economies, and not the, again, developed, because often what happens is we put ourselves against ideals and metrics that have been created with different geographies and setups in mind, which doesn't work where we are based. So I'm hoping to have more locally innovative, models and metrics also created, so that we know how we are, improving ourselves and what are we measuring ourselves against. So I would say I am moderately optimistic at this stage, and I'm hoping that we keep on leveraging on this change and keep on making this change, because I keep saying there's no planet B. Yeah, so we have to do something right now. And Sabrina, please share about what are you doing for food and agriculture?
Yeah, so I think the difference between food and agriculture and fashion is that the awareness came a lot earlier for us, right? So people already knew about the problems about deforestation, unsustainable farming practices, even like 2 decades ago. So there was already this movement that was going on about how do we stop, and the big bad corporation, palm oil, whatever it is, has always had a bad reputation, right? So there was already an existing movement in terms of how do we ensure that farming is sustainable, all of that. And I think at the same time, as consumers become aware, it also became a baseline, right? So the term sustainable agriculture is no longer the exception; it became more the norm. But unfortunately, like what you said, what we actually saw was a lot of greenwashing. When you kind of dig into the numbers, there's been reports that show, hey, fair trade's not really that fair. There's a lot of issues with certification, right? It really doesn't change the lives of farmers. There's a lot of deforestation crops or crops that cause deforestation that goes into so-called sustainable supply chain. So when you actually dig in, there's a lot of issues. So I think there has been a shift as well amongst producers and companies who care about that, to go beyond the certification, to go beyond just the baseline sustainable. So in agriculture, for example, now it's just not good enough to say, hey, deforestation free, but people talk about regenerative agriculture. So not just that you don't cut down trees, but you look at areas of degraded land, and how do we actually increase biodiversity in those degraded pieces of land? How do we actually increase the amount of carbon capture in degraded areas? So we've seen that movement, and I think what we'll probably see in the future as well is a differentiation between the so-called greenwashing labels and all these companies that are really trying to make a difference. One interesting thing is about direct sourcing. So this is something that we've seen more and more, where I think people are becoming aware, like, okay, it has a nice, label on my coffee packaging or my chocolate bar, but actually, where does it actually come from, and what is the impact that it has, and how can I actually see how this translates to impact on the ground? And there's still this whole ambiguity and lack of transparency. So direct sourcing is a new thing, which is something that we're also working on in terms of, if you buy a chocolate bar, how do we actually tell people who are the farmers that you're supporting, how much were they paid, where are they, when were the beans harvested? How can we have that level of accountability and that level of transparency such that the consumer becomes aware or have that degree of confidence that, yes, what I'm doing, my purchase is actually making an impact. So over the next, I think, 2-3 years, we'll see a lot more companies focusing on direct sourcing, a lot more companies providing greater transparency as well. And interestingly, I think COVID actually expedited the need for, or the consumer demand for, more sustainable products. So that was a positive thing that came out of COVID, right? Yes, mostly it is in the global north, but then at least it's happening. And I think that to me is a very encouraging thing, that people are demanding more accountability from producers, from manufacturers, from growers.
Okay, as for me, from the education in the next 5 years, I think more and more provider will come about. And then I feel like the schools are more open these days to, new changes because of the COVID as well. So thanks to the pandemic, this is one of the great things, it accelerates a lot of things, especially the technology education. And I feel like if schools are more likely to be open-minded about trying new things, involving new kids on the block, because my business is actually only 2 years old, but to this date, we are able to reach around 3,000 students nationwide already. So I feel like as we go on, more trust will be put into us, and in that way, we can disseminate a lot of good information about technology education as well. And I feel like the outlook is very positive right now. The team is pumped. We got to see a lot of new schools this week and in the coming weeks. So I feel really, really great about this. Just short.
Thank you. Next question. Maybe this diverts the topic from the industry, the general industry talk just now. Imposter syndrome. Have you heard of it? And how do you deal with it, especially as entrepreneurs here? Yeah.
All the time.
Oh yeah, good. I wanted to say, Sabrina and Kartika, you have to have a go at it first.
And I think the thing is that most of us think it's just us, right? Whereas when you talk to people, I think Kartika also shared, about her support group, and you just feel like, oh, I'm the only one feeling like I'm not achieving enough. But then when you talk to people, you're like, everyone's feeling the same way. So I think imposter syndrome is super normal, and I think most people, I would say the vast majority of entrepreneurs at some point in time have felt it, and those that didn't, probably there's something wrong with them rather than there's something wrong with us, right? It's just like you question, because when you see the vanity, you go on LinkedIn and everyone's talking about what they achieve and all of that, and then you go on Instagram and everyone's posting about like socially everything that's going great in their life, and you look at your own life and you're like, oh my God, I'm so different from all of that. So yeah, all the time imposter syndrome. And I think recognizing that that's normal, that everyone's kind of going through that, helps a lot, right? That you're like, okay, rather than feeling like, okay, I'm the only one who feels this way, but nah, you're not.
Same experience, because actually this is what happened to me when I jumped in from corporate into entrepreneurship. I questioned myself a lot. I asked myself, am I good enough for this? Am I saying the right thing? And if I really self-doubt myself a lot. But then I say to myself, and this is what our partner said to me also before, you have to be kind to yourself. A lot of times it's very difficult to juggle a lot or to prioritize a lot of hats in yourself. So be kind to yourself, and then remind yourself that you've done a lot. And you don't have to be sorry for self-doubting yourself a lot of times as well. And I feel like when I am aware of this imposter syndrome in myself, and in others, I can help the others to overcome it as well. And even to this date, a lot of my female friends who would like to start a business, they always ask me, am I capable of running this? What kind of resources do I need? What kind of resources do I have? And then I keep having to tell them, it's okay, just do it first, just do it first. If you fail, then so be it. At least you learn something about it. And the only way to tackle this is just to keep trying, I guess. There's nothing wrong with having that. And then there's also nothing wrong with admitting that you have that, because I just did. But at the end of the day, it's really up to you if you really want to tackle it or not. So that's like a little bit tip for me.
Adding on, yes. So the very, the dangerous syndrome, as we call it, imposter syndrome, but yes, so common. And I do agree with Sabrina. If you've not felt it, means maybe you didn't set a high bar for yourself. Yeah, because we are bound to feel it. And the other thing women face is the whole conditioning that we've been through, right? Some of us have been able to transcend it. Some of us have not. And that's what leads to this imposter syndrome, bringing us down, and which is basically a situation where you tell yourself, I don't belong here, right? Or am I really worth it? Or am I going to completely destroy this thing that I took up? And I think that happens. One is, of course, that whenever you will raise yourselves to new challenges, you are bound to feel it because it's, whole thing you're getting used to. But the second thing is, because there are not so many of us in those positions, you also are put in the limelight. You also put yourself to a very high pedestal, and then you question, right? So it's also a matter of conditioning, which will happen. So I think the first thing is normalizing it. I agree with Sabrina, normalize it. It happens to all of us at different stages, different scales. Like Medina, you've had it too when we've had discussions, right? And then Karthika, I know. So we've all had it. And I think what needs to happen is every time you feel it, you learn over a period of time to call yourself out, address the things that you can address, which could be skills gap, etc., and then get on with life. Okay, because life is too short. Don't let that linger too long. It's okay to feel that, and maybe feel a bit humbled at times, but don't let it lead you on. We live in an age of information overload. Oh my God, I can't agree with now LinkedIn becoming the new Facebook. It's just a bit too much, right? Everybody's achieving, and then you feel like, oh my God, what have I done, right? I've just been working like crazy, and look at what I've achieved. And yeah, it happens to me almost every day, I have to admit it, but you have to get on with it, right? So you feel it, yeah, and then you move on and you do what you can. So that's the message to women and also men out there, that yeah, feel it and get on with it is what I would say. Don't let it linger.
Thank you for the great advices. Guess we're reaching the final 5 minutes of our talk. Maybe if everyone wants to share quick final remarks, maybe also motivate Gen Zs to, step up and become social entrepreneurs. The screen is yours. Let's start from Sabrina, maybe.
Sure. So I like the quote that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And I think that's really true, especially when you're doing something as challenging as this, right? Like we talked about women's social entrepreneurship, Indonesia, multiple layers of challenges. So having just your support network, your community, mentors, peers, even just cheerleaders, right? Whether it's your friends, family that's cheering you on, that is so important. So don't be afraid to take that leap of faith. But as you do that, remember to bring others along with you, because that's what's going to sustain you over the long run.
Kartika?
Okay, just to add to Sabrina as well, don't forget to pay it forward. When somebody help you, help the others, be kind to yourself and be kind to the others. And always remember there is no impact too small to aim. Just because you're not doing something great over a period of time, it just need a little bit more time. So don't stop, keep going. That's all.
I think Sabrina and Kartika really covered off. So what I'd like to add in is, we live in the age of experimenting and trying. So don't miss that out. Don't be shy to make mistakes. Take up something new, try it. It's okay if you fail, at least you tried, rather than just sitting and making all these, grand plans, which we never execute or work on. So I would really tell people to go and try it out. It's all right if it didn't work. You're alive. That's what matters. Try again, try something new, but really leverage on experimenting, trying new things and learning from it. Because the times we live in are really conducive to experimenting and testing new solutions. So we should really raise our hands for it. And that's what I would like to say, to the younger audiences, or even to the older one, to be very honest, right? Like our founder, she started the business when she was 50, yeah, in her mid to late 50s. So come on, right? So let's just try new things and learn.
Well, thank you so much for the insight from Sabrina, from Aparna, from Kartika. This wraps up our talk today. We would like to say thank you again to Ashoka Arab World and Women's Initiative for Social Entrepreneurship, WISE, for having us host today's panel talk. Thank you as well to the panelists today for making the time to attend the talk today. And of course, thank you to our audiences for watching our panel talk today. We hope to see you in the next event. Thank you.